hard doing security, and they have been absolutely fantastic. Sir, you made it through hurricane season without a hurricane.
Yeah.
And so FEMA, you kept the hurricanes away. So.
Welcome everyone to let's look, that should be the commander's shield, and it is not up. Why is that? Well, it is now. There we are. Commander, hey, how are you?
Pretty good.
All right. So, and actually, Azandering is not with us tonight. Welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Marsuder. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Dear Lord, it's going to be a show. It's going to be a show. So that was from the cabinet meeting that happened yesterday that we decided not to cover because we figured it was just going to be mostly stuff like that, which was really funny but not worth covering live. It also included some other highlights. Marco Rubio was talking and had a notable effect on the president, who was obviously enthralled with what Marco Rubio had to say. We also, I gotta say,
He wasn't snoring too loud.
Well, and even Commander does not yet know about this. I'm getting it. I had to confirm it. I was a little late getting through our news section. It was in the news section, and I said, this cannot be real. Bregwin posted it, and it's real. I had to go to Pete Hegseth's Twitter site, his verified whatever that means nowadays, to find it and make sure it was there, and it was. So let me bring it in right now. So yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I had it a second ago. The Secretary of Defense tweeted this. Wow. Yeah, to which this Adam Parkhemo replied, the drunken rapist war criminal sure is a psycho. Yeah. Holy smoke. All right. So, let me quickly go check.
As long as we're talking about stupid things with Hegseth, the other one I love is the nameplate in front of him at a recent thing. Did you see that where they misspelled Secretary of War with 2 S's? And that can't have been accidental. Admittedly, they didn't use lightning bolt S's, but still the message comes across very clearly.
Oh. That's yeah, well, and then actually this was the other thing, and this is in our Discord as well. This is the U.S. Department of Labor, which is posting political messages, which we've seen a great deal of in the, we saw basically every single department in the federal government posting that the Democrats were responsible for the shutdown, which is just absolutely, even if it were true, the government is supposed to be nonpartisan, and they're not supposed to. But the interesting thing about this is that aside from saying the fight for Western civilization has begun, which is a weird thing for the U.S. Department of Labor to say, that is 11 stars. What?
I was going to say, they say things like that because it resonates with the rabid cultist base.
Well, and look at the font.
Oh, yeah.
Does the font remind you of anything? Oh,
See, Kyle. Oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Misstep on my part.
Holy smoke. So, yeah, that's why we keep putting at the beginning, at least when I got the time, that thing. It's like, no, this is America, though I can't imagine hell being much worse. All right. So the biggest news, and I think this is big for do we still have a Department of Labor? I don't know that we still have a government. Don't ask me questions. Okay, this literally is, I hate to quote Ayn Rand, but
you have to have
who is John
something
Galt?
so you have a cabinet level post you can reward some loyal follower with.
Oh, that's a good point.
You won't completely do away with these departments. It may be just a cabinet member and his secretary who can, bring him coffee in the morning. There may not be anybody else doing anything else, but we got to have that high paying position for, some good loyalist. That's very important.
I've always felt that we needed Ich bin ein American. Yeah. I've always felt that we need a Department of Jelly Bean Counters. So, I think we can add that. So there's, yeah. You called it. Titan got it for us. So I will get that in just a second. It's always, yeah, I can get that. Okay. Thank you, Titan. Yeah, since I got it right now anyway, let's put that up. Wow. You're right. That can't have been a mistake. Here it is.
Yeah. Now, the only question is this deliberate by his people sending a message to the base, or is this deliberate by somebody who doesn't like the man and wants to embarrass him?
That's what I find so frustrating, is sometimes you can see something being done by kind of either side. It's really a little weird when you're in that kind of position. That's why dog whistles. There's a thing. What is it? Some Nazi sympathizer gives a dog whistle. Leftist says, well, that sounds like a dog whistle designed to have plausible deniability. And then the centrist says, well, yeah, but it's possible it might not have been.
Well, it's like, I remember during confirmation hearings for somebody the first time, and one of the people that came in with their entourage had the white power sign, and people were saying, oh, it was just, they were just saying, okay, except they held that sign down at belt level for like 50 minutes in this whole hearing.
Oh.
They were definitely sending a message. It wasn't some sort of, everything's A-okay.
Even the Heritage Foundation has been coming up saying, we have a little bit of a Nazi problem in our ranks.
Just a tiny one.
You know it's a problem when Heritage is saying, okay, you're going a little too far to the right. Oh my God. Oh, and this is yeah.
Which is a great segue into one of the main things I think we're going to be talking about, which is this whole, kill them all order. And I think that's kind of what the issue here is that these guys really don't think about the message, what they say and do sends to people outside the foam at the mouth cultist group. And, honestly, if you hadn't said that, probably there wouldn't be an investigation being opened by, a joint session. Nobody would have blinked, and they would have just said, oh, okay, so, we blew up a couple of fishing boats. But when you actually get somebody saying, no, the Secretary of Defense said, kill them all, then everybody starts sitting up and taking notice. It's like, oh my gosh, these people really are as horrible as people are saying they are.
This is his, and I had lost this picture, and then I found it again on his Twitter post because it's the head of his Twitter. And it's just like, what kind of douchebag puts something like, it's like, yeah, America. It's like, oh my God, yeah. It's.
I'm wearing my tactical business blazer.
So, let's see. Where is? I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so apparently during the confirmation hearings, not the confirmation, sorry, the cabinet hearing or the cabinet meeting, they did point out that Trump's blowing up of these boats have saved hundreds of millions of Americans in the cocaine that's been destroyed. It would take
hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions. That is correct.
That's an interesting statistic.
It is an interesting statistic, and
since it's plural, means it's at least 200 million. So that represents roughly 60% of the whole population are the cocaine addicts who are avoiding being killed by the stuff being brought into the country. Regardless of the fact that most of what comes out of Venezuela goes to Europe, not to the U.S. That's hardly an issue.
And it would take because I had nothing to do today and figured, it's not going to be a big show. Why don't I figure this out? 400 tons of cocaine would be required to kill 200 million people if you weaponized it to kill people. If they all died taking it the first time, which obviously cocaine doesn't kill everybody the first time, you would need 400 tons of cocaine to have killed that many people.
So 10 major cargo vessel loads worth. Okay. No, seriously.
Well, no, I'm glad. I'm sitting there going, of course you would have the answer
to that.
I know
how much the thing carries.
I knew you. It didn't occur to me as soon as you came up with the answer. I was just like, of course he's got the answer to that. Yeah. So,
the little go-fast boats they're talking about maybe carry 2 tons.
Yeah, but you see, here's the other possibility which scares the shit out of me, which is maybe they're also blowing up cargo boats we haven't found out yet. I mean,
one of those I wouldn't put it past them things. Yeah, you're right.
She's sitting there going, oops, sorry, I wasn't supposed to say we're blowing up random cargo vessels coming out of Venezuela, which wouldn't be a natural disaster, no. I'm going to play a clip from Pete Hegseth talking about the strike. So what we're going to talk about, and I want to talk especially with you, Commander. And in fact, actually, before we do that, for those, since this is in time, for those who haven't seen you in a little while, or we haven't had you on in a more official capacity, could you please remind people of who you are?
Sure. I am a retired U.S. naval officer. I retired in 2005, so I've been out of service 20 years at this point. While I was on active duty, I had operational specialties in logistics and amphibious operations. And the final job that I had before retirement, which touches directly on the subject we're talking about right now, was I was the operations officer for Joint Interagent Task Force West, which is the group that coordinates military support to civilian law enforcement in narcotics smuggling enforcement.
Which is ironic because I won't get into that. What I was gonna say was I thought that was how you had met Pat, but I don't think that is how you met Pat. But at any rate, so what Hegseth has done, the Washington Post reported that they had multiple sources confirming that after blowing up on the very first strike, we've been striking a lot of these boats, striking
Back
these
in
boats.
September.
Yep. The striking these boats is already a war crime. The reason it's a war crime is because, or a murder at a minimum, depending on how you frame it. It's because these are civilian targets. They are not military targets.
Yeah. I would be arguing that this can't be a war crime because technically we're not at war.
So it's murder.
Simply put, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If anything, it is an illegal use of the military in a law enforcement role.
All right. So they've been blowing up these boats. This first boat was on September 2nd. They have said that they have concrete proof that it was filled with narco-terrorists who were transporting cocaine. I think they at first they had said it was whatever's the one that they're really fentanyl. Thank you. But then they said it was cocaine. In either case, they said that there was rock solid evidence that these were part of I think MS-13. And there were 11 of them on board. Now, the first very big problem is these boats are, as you said, go-fast boats. They do carry cargo, but with every person you put on board, you can carry less cargo. So when they're actually smuggling drugs, you don't have 11 people on board. You just don't. If they're human trafficking, they might. But
maybe three.
Maybe. Okay. So we don't know what this boat was doing, but it's highly unlikely there were any drugs on this boat. Hegseth gave the order to destroy the boat, but it turns out the way he said it was kill them all. The admiral, Frank M. Bradley, ironically, decided, launched a first strike for which Hegseth apparently was present. We don't know how long he stayed after that. He claims he left the room after that. The Washington Post was crystal clear that they did not know whether he was in the room for the second attack. But what happened was, once the smoke cleared from the first attack, they found two survivors clinging to the wreckage. At this point, they're not combatants. They can't fight. They can't do anything. They're not an immediate threat to anyone. And in fact, subsequently, we have rescued people. We rescued two survivors from a previous attack. And because they're dangerous terrorists who want to kill every American they can, we sent them home to their countries to rejoin their forces attacking and invading America. I'm not joking. So, given all of that background, they fired a second strike. They killed those two people who were incapable of, they were out of the fight. Numerous members of Congress have weighed in and said, if that actually happened, it is ostensibly a war crime because Trump has said that this is in fact a war. That's the power that he's invoking to do this, is that the authorization from September 11th. That notwithstanding, it appears to be at least a violation of the Geneva Convention, Article 3, one of the Hague rules.
To interrupt here, one of the things I've seen that is a retort from the MAGA cult is that, well, I don't see the narco-terrorists being signed on to, the Geneva Accords. And the response there is, no, they don't need to be. The Geneva Accords are something you sign on to and say you will uphold, regardless of who you're fighting against.
And that also protects our troops, does it not?
Yes.
I mean, and I don't mean in terms of, so if we violate the Accords, my understanding is frontline troops start to get actually very worried about that, because if we start to violate them, then if you get captured, someone's going to say, well, America doesn't, if America's not going to follow these accords, neither are we, and now you're subject to torture and all of these other things. So,
yeah.
My understanding is the lower on down the ranks, they actually really care very much about these accords because they protect them. and maybe not from narco terrorists or whoever these guys are, but certainly if we decide to invade Venezuela or anything else, it's an issue. So this is
That's only
yeah,
half the argument.
yes, sir.
The other is the international law of the sea, which is that any mariner is required to render aid to those who are, adrift at sea, which these two alleged survivors would definitely check that box. And so, according to international maritime law, once they'd finished the first strike, regardless of whether that was legal or not, is not addressing. I'm saying once they finished the first strike and ascertained that there were survivors, they were bound by international maritime law to render aid to those individuals, not conduct a circle around second strike.
So, which is, if I recall correctly, is called a double tap strike.
No, double tap is a different matter.
So a double tap is when you the second one may even be a blind fire. You don't know if there were survivors, but you're targeting recovery crew, and so technically not a double tap strike.
Right.
All right. Well, just so we're using the vernacular that is being used, whether it is accurate or not, by journalists, but I think that is an important distinction. The so-called double tap strike, it was not. It was a second strike. Because now a number of members of Congress are saying either it is a war crime or it is a violation of international law, and the funny thing is, it's more Republicans saying that. The Democrats are like, well, if it is as reported, then yeah, it's hard to imagine that it's not a violation. It's like the Dems are being more cautious about this than the Republicans. And there is now the Armed Services Committee for each of the houses is going to hold an investigation. This is what Pete Hegseth had to say about that strike and about the reporting. And the interesting thing that I do want to point out is, while it's a reporting from WAPO, which does usually very good reporting, nobody's denied it. So in my view, if none of them have denied it, it happened. So there were two on a second. Nobody has denied that has happened. So at this point, I think we can say it happened. It's just the exact details are sketchy. But this is Pete Hegseth.
This is drugs running on motor fast boats or submarines that we've also struck. No one's fishing on a submarine. And I have empowered them to make that call. Now, the first couple of strikes, as any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. So I said, I'm going to be the one to make the call after getting all the information and make sure it's the right strike. That was September 2nd. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into that, building that case and understanding that, a lot of people providing information. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back, and the American
not
people
a single gun
because narco
in evidence at any point.
In fact, I got 50 seconds left on this. Let me finish this, and then there was a point you had brought up earlier that I think is very important too.
Terrorists know you can't bring drugs through the water and eventually on land if necessary to the American people. We will eliminate that threat, and we're proud to do it.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President.
Yeah, and yet we knew about the second strike, so clearly the sources knew something. So you had pointed this out, and we're going to talk about the president's health. You had pointed it out when we're talking about the president's health, but I think it's equal as important here, which is if there's any good news, you highlight that. If they have even a single shot of a guy holding a gun, even if he's just polishing it, whatever.
That would be 24/7 on Fox News.
Yeah. So they've conducted, do you know how many strikes they've conducted? I want to say 11, but, you know.
I'd heard 14, but
okay.
I'm not really paying.
Over 10.
Yeah.
I remember when we were at 8, and I remember there were more past that. So we don't have the exact number, and it's hard to. They don't call in time every time they do one. Kind of thank God because now I got to start like looking out my window, going like, sorry, Pete, I didn't mean to say that you were a schmuck. Well, I did mean to say that, but I didn't. You know, if you're going to bomb me, then I take it back. The two S's. Holy, oh my God. Okay. I'm trying to keep it together here. I mean, again, that's the other thing. He talks about the intelligence they had. It was a drug boat. It had 11 people on board. It was not a drug boat. I don't know what they were doing. It may or may not have been illegal. Venezuela, who I do not trust, says they were a fishing boat. They may have been, but Venezuela, if it was a drug boat, wouldn't admit it. So, you know, we don't know. But there was 11 people if it was human trafficking. But if it was human trafficking, those could have been kidnapped victims on the boat, and those could have been kidnapped victims that were hit on the second strike who survived the first
taken
one.
to Epstein's Island for the orange person. Oh, wait a minute, no.
Oh yeah. Ixnay Islands A. Sorry, we had some audio problem. Some of the Shills feed, the Shills feed accidentally just cut right in here. If there's any problems, you can go to Dick, or even better yet, just talk to Dunk and give him a hard time. It will take care of everything. It's their feed. So, anyways, and they're Canadians, so eventually. I was going to make a 51st state joke, but that's a very sensitive issue in Canada, as well it should be. So what are your thoughts on that video? You've just seen that video. You know what the reporting is. You clearly have some thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on what Hegseth said?
I think he's dancing as fast as he can and trying to shuffle as much of the blame off onto the admiral as he can, because he knows that he's probably in a very deep end of a pool filled with excrement right now.
So,
I mean, if the reporting is correct that they have multiple sources having him say, kill them all, that is not ambiguous. That's a specific and direct order.
All right. So, yes.
I want to go back and explain what double tap it is, so that in the context here, it may make more sense. Double tap is typically a shooting technique used by special forces when they want to ensure somebody is down and is going to stay down permanently. It's 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head. Double tap, bip, bip, for the chest shots, because that's a big target. That will drop him, and 1 to the head to make sure they stay down. In this case, they may be referring to a double tap, meaning you came in, you executed the first strike. Now I want you to come around to ensure they stay down. Ensure there are no witnesses. Good mob thinking for people that have so many connections with the mob.
So we've got a question: is an order "kill them all" an illegal order?
It depends on context in terms of what's going on. So, and I saw in the stream somebody asked, don't the Army and the Navy have different rules of engagement? No. Everybody has different rules of engagement depending on where they are, what they're doing, and what the threat level is. There are not fixed rules of engagement. So in this case, had there been any intelligence or actual fire from the people in that boat, or intelligence that they were armed and were going to be shooting at them, then saying go around and make sure they're neutralized to prevent damage to U.S. forces, arguably could be a legal order. I don't think it applies in this case because thus far we've heard no indication that there's intel that these guys were heavily armed. And at no point were there any reports that they were shooting at the strike aircraft. So it's a bunch of guys in a boat. Whether they're drug smugglers, they're human traffickers, or unfortunate fishermen, I can only speculate. I don't know. But based on the way rules of engagement usually work, once that vessel was knocked out and there had been no indication of a threat of any sort, those guys would have fallen under standard law of the sea protections.
You said that during the video. So he had said we had to come around a second time and eliminate the threat. And you said, what threat?
Yeah.
So for the first, we'll ignore the very important fact that still has to be answered. Were they a threat in the first place? Let's ignore that because that's got no.
Their argument is going to be they were carrying drugs to the United States and thereby constituted a threat to the United States. But again, once the vessel had been neutralized in the first attack run, that threat ceased to exist. They weren't going to carry bales of whatever it was and swim to the U.S. from where they were. It did not a possibility. So, there is no threat.
So by every possible definition, by a standard military definition, them being armed and having weapons, by the new definition that Trump is using, the drugs are the weapon. By all of those, really, there was no threat. So it was an attack on two people who were, I forget what there's a Latin term for it, out of the fight.
Hors de combat.
Hors de combat. Thank you.
That's not Latin, but whatever.
Oh. Okay. Well, shh. We get more super chats if they think I speak Latin. Ixnay explain. Explanatory. Okay. So, if you're the admiral, and this has got to be a tough. You've never been in a position like this, so it's probably a little hard to put yourself in his shoes.
Arguably, I have been.
Actually, you did piss Cheney off.
Well, not Cheney, but the situation with Dan Rather.
I don't know this story.
Oh, well, I'll tell you that in a bit. So regardless.
So what is, so you're Bradley.
Yep.
You received an order to kill them all. That means when there's two left, you have not yet completed your order. So you go back, you kill them. What do you think he's thinking right now, and how is...
Who, Bradley?
Yeah.
If I were Bradley at this point, I'd be really afraid. I think he is the perfect scapegoat to prevent any of this malodorous brown substance from adhering to the administration. If they say he misinterpreted what he was told.
Oh. Okay, first of all, I actually kind of agree with that argument, in as much as I think when he said kill them all, he just thought he was being a hot shot. He even though he's had some military experience, he's got no fucking clue.
He's well given to a record of
Yeah.
hyperbole, overstatement, and, trying to show you that his testicles are 10 times larger than anybody else's in the room.
Exactly. But this is why he can't be the Secretary of War. He doesn't understand that the admiral does not have the luxury of sitting there saying, oh, let me interpret what kill them all means. Kill them.
Except in this case, if this had been an Army guy, unfamiliar with the law of the sea, you might be able to say, well, he didn't know that these are protected individuals once their boat has been disabled and hit.
Yeah.
As a Navy guy, the admiral damn well knew what the rules that apply here were. And, if this is the illegal order that Kelly and the others are talking about, yep, you're damn right. That's on him. He should have known that was not an order he could follow through on.
So, obviously, there's going to be a congressional investigation. Now, at first, Republicans started spinning this as this is precisely why we didn't want that video that the members of Congress put out. 6 Democrats in Congress put out a video saying, remember, you do not have to follow an illegal order. Now, this is they put out even though we just found out about this, they put out the video well after this illegal order. What effect do you think both of these things now is having on, would be your guess, and if you know anyone in the military now still, what effect do you think this is having on people?
I think a lot of people are in command positions are taking a step back and saying, well, wait a minute. Normally, you didn't have to worry about whether an order was legal or illegal based on the information you had available to you. If somebody said, destroy that bunker, even though you'd hit it previously, it wasn't shooting back, there was no evidence that the people in there were anything other than, wounded and cowering in corners, you can still say they pose a potential threat because you can't see into the bunker. You don't know if they have weapons ready to shoot. So striking the bunker a second time makes sense. In this case, based on at least the imagery I've seen, it's 2 guys literally clinging to the freaking wreckage of the thing. So they're there. They don't have weapons. They're not going to do anything. So they don't pose a threat. The ROE definitely apply, and the ROE is they're not a threat. You can't eliminate them.
I assume that there's also a concern about, so it sounds like what you're saying is if things occurred as has been reported and as they appear at present, given the footage that you've seen, that Bradley at a minimum should have known he could not do the second strike since the boat was destroyed.
Correct. That would be my assessment.
So I have heard that people are nonetheless concerned that he is going to get scapegoated for this, especially if it's confirmed that Hegseth said kill them all, which regardless of whether he said it or not, he has post hoc said, oh yeah, the second strike was perfectly fine. I stand by it. So as the Secretary of War, he has, after the fact, assumed complete responsibility in as much as he said, everything he did was authorized by me, period, end of discussion. Why do you think he's saying that, and is it working, whatever he's trying to do?
Um, well, I look at it from a perspective of we know there was one incident where they did hit a target and pulled two guys out of the water. And you figure if these were actual legitimate drug smugglers, that these guys would have been brought back to the US, paraded before the press, and made to confess all sorts of terrible, horrible crimes they've been committing, etc. And instead, they were rushed back to Venezuela about as fast as you could blink.
And Colombia. They were actually from two different, one was Venezuelan, one was Colombian. Right.
So my sensitive nose says, I smell cover up. And the issue there is survivors will talk. Survivors potentially can get asked questions, which are thereby embarrassing to the regime. So now that they're on a U.S. ship and are in detention under military control, you can't really call the ship up and say, shoot them and dump the bodies overboard, because Seaman Schmuckatelli and his brother are going to be talking to the press of Blue Street.
Yeah.
So what do? Well, we're repatriating them. We know that they will be properly prosecuted by the government of Venezuela, who we have so little faith and trust in. We're talking about invading their freaking country.
We're trying to overthrow right now and have a bounty on that.
We're going to return this dangerous drug smuggler to you. I mean, all of this just, it stacks up and slides off into the sewer every time you try to make the lies into some sort of credible structure from these guys. It doesn't work. So I think regardless of the words that were actually spoken, were the message was clear. We do not want any survivors. We don't want anybody being able to talk and say what's really going on. We are trying to sell a wag the dog scenario here, and we need it to be fitting those strictures that we put around the story we're trying to sell.
Somebody asked, and at first I was just like, oh no, and then I realized, well, maybe. The president, as you know, cannot pardon crimes in the state, in the states. So if you're being prosecuted for a state crime, he can't pardon it. But somebody asked the question, could he pardon in D.C.? And that's a really good question, because D.C. does not have a governor. And Trump is considered. So I looked it up, and it turns out he can. D.C. he can pardon in. And right now in D.C., what's her name? Kristi Noem is facing, and to which she appears to, on air, have admitted to violating the judge's order. We have that clip. I don't know. Yeah. It's funny. It's just like, yeah, I didn't turn the planes around. So she's being sought after for criminal contempt, which is a very different thing than standard contempt. There would be a trial, but it would be a criminal trial in D.C., meaning she could be pardoned by Trump. How about murder? The common thinking by most people is that murder is a state crime, and there's a reason murder is a state crime. The assassination of JFK was actually a state crime. It was a crime in the state of Texas. It was supposed to be investigated by Texas investigators who were investigating it, sort of, but it was the feds who came in and
took it on the high seas. Therefore, it falls under federal jurisdiction.
Exactly. So, is Trump's base getting upset with these pardons? He pardoned the former governor of
President.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes,
Honduras. Yeah, I mean the hypocrisy has been there from the very beginning. We know that there's dozens and dozens of instances of, say one thing, do another that comes out of them, and has since even before they got into office the first time. The issue here is that they're becoming frustrated, they being the base, maybe not the deepest of the deep red base, but the ones who were kind of fair weather MAGAs, are beginning to get frustrated with the hypocrisy of, oh yes, we're completely big on anti-narco terrorism, except we'll let this guy go because he paid me a whole bunch of money.
Well,
and it's starting.
We're against war, but we're about to invade Venezuela or do something there. Yeah.
Tariffs are good for you, even though your family farm is going into foreclosure because nobody's buying your damn soybeans, or you name it. There's so many things going on. And I think that's probably what has led to this sudden tranche of all of these Republican senators and congressmen saying that they're not going to be running for re-election. I think they're beginning to realize that their chances would have been slim to begin with. And when the balloon eventually does go up, the level of rage is going to be huge. It's kind of like with Nixon. If you look at the papers and the evening news and such, right up to the day Nixon's resignation, there was still a substantial portion of the American public that was of the opinion he could do no wrong. It was all a frame up. It was unfair. He was a good and honest guy. And then he resigns, and suddenly everybody, it's like, oh, I never thought he was a good guy. And I think to some extent that's what's going on here, is that as the evidence mounts and mounts and mounts, people are beginning to start backing away, beginning to realize that by remaining overtly loyal, they are dooming their futures. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Along the lines of cover-ups, Trump has had his 3rd annual physical in a year. He got an MRI. He does not know what for.
People go in for physicals, every couple of months, don't they?
Yeah. He got his 3rd MRI. He got an MRI. It's at least his 2nd that we know of, although someone pointed out to me that when you get an MRI, they have to put actually, I think it's for a CAT scan, but maybe I've forgotten which. But they have to put the contrast fluid in, and in order to do that, you get an IV, which leaves the kind of bruising that he had on his hand. So that could have been from yet another round of imaging. Now, he was getting on Air Force One. He was asked about this. He said that he didn't remember where they gave him the MRI. So he's perfectly fine, because that MRI was like a week ago. He doesn't remember where.
His abdomen. I think it was my abdomen.
Well, and he knows it wasn't his head because they did give him a cognitive test and he scored perfectly on that, so they didn't MRI his head. But he's got no idea where. Wow. And then they said, well, could we see it? They said, yeah, you can see the MRIs. I'll release the MRIs. And they double checked. They said, you're going to release the MRIs. He goes, yeah, they're all good. You can see all the MRIs. They asked Pam Bondi for the MRIs. I'm not going to play it because it's her voice does the same thing to me. But she literally comes out. She gets asked, are you going to release the MRIs? She goes, we're releasing them today. I have them right here. We've got copies of the MRIs for everybody back there. So let me read it for you. And then she reads a summary from a doctor that says that he got an MRI and everything's perfectly fine. They then release that summary. None of that is the MRI. She knows that because she's not that stupid. And so I don't know if there was any follow-up questions. The video isn't that long, but it's crystal clear they're trying to avoid releasing the MRI, which again, if it's good, wouldn't you bring it out and highlight it if it's what Trump says it is? So on top of the problems in his cabinet, on top of his, now to be fair, and I do want to try to be fair, I try not to be partisan. Look, everybody falls asleep when Rubio talks. I get it. Okay, this may have nothing to do with age, but that notwithstanding, any thoughts?
I mean, you look at the pictures of him in the one that you showed us earlier with Hegseth sitting next to him talking, and he's kind of got the same expression. I mean, he's awake, you can see it, he's moving his head around and such, but yeah, I think he zones out and really doesn't pay attention until somebody says, Mr. President, what do you think about? And then he just spouts whatever pops into his head. And I think that's one of the reasons they go to such lengths to try to control him and keep him out of the public eye, because the moment somebody asks him something, it's a random roll of the die to, whether you hit the mark or go wide and lose. And I think that's probably what's going on. His mental faculties are shaky. I won't go so far as to say, yeah, he's in deep dementia or whatever. I just think he's, the accusations that they put forth about Biden being an old man who couldn't focus on the problems and concentrate, etc. Well, I think that's where Trump is right now. I think he really has trouble focusing. We know from everybody talking about him that it's whoever's in the room with him last that presents their argument. That's the one he gloms onto and pushes for the next day or two. There's nothing there that fills a rational, logical analysis machine determining how to respond. He just opens his mouth and stuff pours out. Nobody knows from one moment to the next what it's going to be.
I'm going to play this clip again. It's the clip of the hurricanes. But the reason I'm going to play this is because what I was trying to figure out earlier what it sounded like to me. And you and I were talking about the joking and this and that. And then I realized I finally figured out what this is. This is how you talk to a child.
Yeah.
And everybody in that cabinet meeting is treating him, the best, biggest, strongest president ever, like a child. They're laughing even at the bad jokes, at the stupid jokes, like he's a child. They're treating him like he's about 7 or 8 years old. So this is a cabinet meeting. Someone tell me I'm wrong.
Worked hard doing security, and they have been absolutely fantastic. Sir, you made it through hurricane season without a hurricane.
Yeah.
And so FEMA, you kept the hurricanes away.
Everybody's laughing and smiling and nodding their heads. Oh, yes, Mr. President. It was so wonderful.
And with the you saved hundreds of millions of lives with your strikes and it's just like, it's creepy, scary, and again, it's not how you talk to an adult.
You know who you talk to like that?
Who?
Your elderly relative you expect to kick off soon, and you want to be high in the queue for whatever's in the will.
That's a really good. Yeah, that is. That's a. I mean, I don't.
You laugh at whatever stupid thing they say. Yeah. It's not supposed to be funny. You nod sagely when it sounds like they're trying to be serious. You're not listening to what they're saying. You're just reacting to what you think the message is they're trying to convey. Stay on the good side.
Yep. No, I think you. I'm sorry. What was that? No, never mind. I know you already cut me out of the will. I don't. That's perfect. I don't have to be nice to you.
You get my extensive collection of foreign postage stamps.
I'm the kind of geek who would probably like those. We do have a little breaking. There was a special election for the Tennessee uh, House. A Republican Matt Van Epps won. There was hopes that the Dems could flip it, but I will say that Trump won this district by more than 20 points. He won the district by more than 20 points. In their election, their special election for the U.S. House, the Republican won 53 to 45. And that's in deep red Tennessee. So at a minimum, the Dems were surprisingly competitive. The other thing, and I had seen this earlier, Titan was good enough to remind me, Trump said this today, we've got so much going on that stuff like this, extraordinarily important, is just, this, you had talked about this earlier, you just get so overwhelmed. It's like, okay, what state is he invading today? Earlier today, Donald Trump said that he was ordering that SNAP food aid be withheld from Democratic-controlled states until such time as those states could provide evidence showing where that money is being used. So the condition isn't suspected fraud or crime or based on how much money they're taking or what percentage of their state budget the SNAP program represents, or whether or not it's that they have to show that the money is being used correctly, which the states administrate it, but the state, I don't know. At any rate, that's staggering. And I'm getting a little tired of saying that. I assume, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I assume he does learn. So he's not incapable of learning. We've talked about people who are incapable of learning, and it's just watching them. What's his name? Rick Santorum's one of them. So is the Texas governor, I think is yeah.
Abbott.
But Abbott, yeah. Same mistakes over, as opposed to just making brand new ones. But Trump has figured out, he's like, okay, when I cut SNAP programs, that really pissed a lot of people off when I cut them, especially to the red states. But the red states are the only ones that I need in my corner. So if I cut them to the blue states, maybe they'll blame the Democrats, or at a minimum, we can just have fewer Democrats around because we've cut off all the food funding to democratically controlled states. This is this is from the president, who said that the Democrats were weaponizing the SNAP program and shutting down the government. This is what this man said, and he has now said Democratic states are not going to get SNAP aid going forward. This isn't going to survive a legal challenge. The good news is
North Korea invades California because it's a blue state. That means that we don't need to send in the U.S. military to stop them. Only red states will get afforded protection of the U.S. military. And that's the logical extension of this kind of thinking, is that I only do stuff with federal government funding that benefits my supporters.
Yeah. And this was, he kind of had said that under his breath the entire time going in, and MAGA Republicans, either deliberately or I think it depends on who you were talking to, would say, no, he's still president of everybody, and others were just like, oh yeah, don't worry, he'll be president of everybody one way or another. Yeah. it's the good news. I mean, I have been delighted at how the lower courts have held up against him. Everything below the Supreme Court. So when I say lower court, actually that's a misnomer because state courts are usually considered superior court. So the lower court, superior court, and then federal court and or SCOTUS. The federal courts and below have all done, on the whole, really well. Eileen Cannon stands out. She would stand out even if the courts have been doing poorly. So the fact that they've all been doing pretty well, and then you have Cannon. But I don't know. I've been delighted by that. I've been delighted by some of the pushback that they've been putting against SCOTUS, saying, "Listen, you guys haven't given us any direction. You've just given us this shadow docket stuff that we can't work with," knowing full well that the Supreme Court can't give them direction because it would be illegal. So that's pushback that the lower courts are putting onto the Supreme Court. Yeah, he's just Oh, wow.
Yep.
So, all right. So I think we covered. Was there? I'm trying to figure out. Was there anything going on with Ukraine? There's no way I know that Zelensky is saying that the so-called peace treaty, which the U.S. wrote,
the 28-point plan that not only did Zelensky reject it, basically almost all of Europe has rejected it too.
It was written by U.S. President himself. U.S. write it. No Russian. Yes, yes, exactly. Trump's Cyrillic is just
flawless.
Well, Zelensky's been very diplomatic. He's just like, well, it's improved. It's sort of like, with a plan like that, it's kind of hard to see how it could get much worse. But he's like, we still have a long way to go with the plan. So I feel bad. I would like to cover more of Ukraine, and we're certainly going to have Greg back because I always learn something, and he did a great video earlier with the drones and talking about how there's almost no front line anymore because the problem is everyone just does the drones, so you have this zone of almost this no man's land. Yeah. But we're basically, it's keep an eye, unless I'm misunderstanding something, we are now at the point, it's sort of the beginning of the end. You'll probably correct me, I'm probably way wrong, but we're at the point where either Russia is going to collapse, which they're selling off their gold reserves, so that's a very good sign, but they're not going to collapse tomorrow, or Ukraine just fails to have the manpower to keep up and gets overrun. Is that essentially where we are at this point?
Yeah, except I wouldn't say Ukraine is going to get overrun. I think what happens is there's a point at which, based on losses, and that doesn't necessarily mean casualties, it means people not returning to service. We know that's becoming an issue for the Ukrainians right now. But when their ability to continue to mount an effective resistance along the line of contact, as that starts eroding, the Russian advances territorially will pick up somewhat. So we're at a point where it's kind of a race between, does the Russian economy collapse before the Ukrainian ability to mount effective resistance does? And I know that it will irritate people when I say it that way, and it's not entirely what I mean. I think Ukrainian resistance will continue, but conventional resistance in the way it's been for the last couple of years along the line of contact, force on force resistance, that will begin to deteriorate simply because they can't continue to put the troops into the field that they need to. But the Ukrainian people, their internal resistance and their willingness to fight effectively a guerrilla or partisan war, that will go on and on and on. I don't see that ever collapsing. Their will to resist is huge.
I'm curious. So we just got a question about $50. Trump selling weapons and intel to the Russians, to Mordor. No, I
don't
wish.
think he's selling weapons to them. And arguably, he's not even selling weapons to the Ukrainians. He's selling it to the Europeans, who then get permission to sell it onwards to the Ukrainians if they're so disposed to do so.
And I'm going to suggest in most cases, I doubt he's selling it. I think he's probably giving it away. I think he's been bought and paid for. I think he still does get bribes of some kind or another. Let me buy some of your gorgeous Trump coin. But I think he is so in bed with them, it's past that transactional level, which for Trump, that's huge because he's transactional. But I think he's at the point now where it's just sort of like he calls up Putin and is just like, well, yeah, this is happening. Did you see that? Let me send you this photo that they showed me on the satellite thing, and I'm going to put you on the phone, and wow, it has no real idea what he's doing. That's what he did the last time he released highly classified information on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's the only correction. No, I don't think he's even getting $40.
I think he's hoping that bluster alone will force Zelensky to cave in and give Putin what he wants. But Trump is too simple-minded to understand that giving in to Putin what he wants effectively means Ukraine ceases to exist. He doesn't grok that. He really doesn't. He's just too stupid.
Is the recent kerfuffle over kerfuffle is absolutely the wrong word because it's quite serious. Is the recent issue with Hegseth about the second boat strike going to influence, do you think, Trump's decision on whatever he's going to do in Venezuela, either speed it up as a distraction or slow it down or cause the troops to hesitate in some way?
Put yourself in the mind of Trump.
I try not to, but okay.
I know, but you need to understand what's going on here.
All right.
Who is all the fallout from the stuff going on in the Caribbean landing on?
Hegseth.
Not Trump.
Yeah.
And as long as that takes the precedence of the headlines, then the whole Epstein thing, which terrifies him, is not in the headlines anymore. So in a lot of ways, what's going on in the Caribbean plays to his benefit. I think he doesn't necessarily want to invade Venezuela, but he needed that as a distraction. And now that the distraction is coming from a different source, he can kind of lean back and not push that as hard. He just needs to keep one thing out of the headlines at this point. Because as I pointed out before, you can get your white power Christo-fascist guy in the MAGA club to overlook a lot of stuff. But once you start talking about pedophilia and child trafficking, it's really hard to reconcile that with your alleged position as, the master race and the family values party, et cetera, et cetera.
The Hague, we are not members of the International Criminal Court, and part of the reason is so that we can get away with stuff like what happened here. Having said that, The Hague has no problem at least indicting people who are not members. Do you think The Hague is going to look at Hegseth at all, or at Bradley? Do you think any other country is going to that might be empowered to in some way or another, or not?
He refers them. And generally speaking, they only take on those cases when it's by the home country. So there may be allegations that, Putin and his crowd are, evil people and they've been committing all sorts of horrible war crimes, but they haven't really been indicted yet. You don't get those indictments out of the World Court until the country of origin starts pushing the issue. And we saw this, for example, with the stuff from the Balkan Wars. It wasn't until Yugoslavia / Serbia started throwing those names to The Hague and say, yeah, this guy's a bad guy, you need to prosecute, that they started to do that kind of thing.
All right. We have it's sorry for taking so long on the super chats. It's just we had a lot to get to. It's been an interesting 48 hours. Sinister Porpoise, $5. I used my dry erase markers to alter the path of the hurricane. So that was when I first told Commander here about the Trump changing the hurricanes. He was just magic powers. I was like, no, he's got the Sharpie. He's got the Sharpie. He can do whatever he wants with hurricanes.
Well, it's a combination of Sharpie and that unparalleled, brilliant, powerful mind using thought waves to control the clouds.
Exactly. Yep. Hegseth knows what we're talking about. Exactly, bro. All right.
Out of the steeple.
All right. Any final thoughts? Anything that maybe we missed that you wanted to cover, or any final thoughts on anything that we've discussed?
I would be paying attention to which direction the congressional inquiries on all this stuff in the Caribbean are going. And I think if we see them focusing on Bradley, then we'll know that it's basically just cover-up time. If they start actually bringing Hegseth into it, then that might, heavy emphasis on might, it might be an indication that the RNC / Heritage Foundation's powers that be are getting tired of all this and want the problem to go away.
Dorito had mentioned that in his experience with the military, there tends to be a double standard when like a corporal can, drive drunk and he ends up getting crucified, maybe even kicked out of the service, while a lieutenant colonel ends up being protected and shielded from repercussions. So he was suggesting that maybe Admiral Bradley gets lambasted publicly and then gets retired from service, but then they go after people down the...
He's already resigned.
How did I miss that?
At least that's my understanding.
I can check that up right now.
I don't know if he resigned as Southcom or resigned from the service entirely.
But... Oh, he was the one who resigned from Southcom. I did not realize. Okay. And that would explain why he resigned from Southcom, because he had a very difficult time with Hegseth. Yep. Right. All right. That's it. Okay, I didn't realize it was the same, and I should have, and I did not. Yeah, he left Southcom. He was not going to. And the thinking was that it was over whether or not any of these strikes were legal. So if that's why he resigned, he may have an interesting story to tell when he talks to Congress.
Yep.
All right. Well, Commander, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry that we did not have Isandering to bless us with his presence. It means one less, but thank you very much. I think you provided a lot of insight. Thank you to the mods and everyone who showed up to join us today. It has been a marvelous show. We are going to be staying on these topics, so if you want to join us on the Discord and see the news literally as we get it, we're often pretty good at beating mainstream media to the punch, and we get that information from people on our Discord. So I hope you will check that out. I have looked, and I have not seen any good place to raid unless Titan can think of one. So sans that, we may do no raid. But other than that, Commander, once again, thank you very much for your time and for joining us.
Glad to have been here.
Have a good day, all, and we will. Our next scheduled show is again with Commander. Downtime scheduled for. We'll absolutely. No, I've flogged Isandering regularly anyway. That may be why he didn't show up in the first place. I don't know, but we'll sort it out. Downtime Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a good night, all.